Bill DeWeese here from voice-over-training.org with this very important question. To ISDN or not to ISDN? And that is the question for those of us who are in the voiceover business. Should you have ISDN in your home recording studio? Well, my answer to that is, well, it depends. There are some things to look at and to consider. I will not be giving you a definitive answer because it really does depend on your situation, what your goals are, and how you interpret some of the things happening in the marketplace. And let's talk about some of those things. One is that ISDN, in all honesty, is outdated technology. It's older technology that, and by the way, if you're just now getting into this and you're really not even sure what ISDN is, it's a high-speed data line. It's a telephone line, but it's not a regular telephone service. It's a high-speed data line that allows you to do a recording session with another studio, literally any place in the world, in real time, and it sounds as if you are sitting there with them. I just a few minutes ago finished up an ISDN recording session with a studio in Kansas City, and I'm near Chicago. But it sounded as if they were sitting in here in my studio with me, and as if I was sitting in their studio. So I didn't record anything on my end. They did all of the recording on their end, and it allowed me to communicate with their engineer and with the clients who were in the studio, really directing the session as if we were together. So that's the benefit of ISDN. It allows you to work remotely in real time with any other studio in the world that has ISDN. It is outdated technology, and people have been prophesying the demise of ISDN for a number of years, but it's still around. So here's the thing you have to consider. And my understanding is there are some markets or places or companies that are no longer servicing or even installing ISDN. So I don't even know if it would be available in your area at this point in time. But the reality is this. Studios, especially here in the United States, are still using ISDN technology. There will come a day when it will no longer be used. When is that day? I have no idea. It might be in a year. It might be in another 5 years. I can't imagine it would go much longer than that, but who knows these things? Eventually, this will all be done over the internet, and in some cases it already is, mostly with a software program called Source Connect. And I recently spoke with a client in Europe that told me that they are very rarely using ISDN in Europe. It's mostly Source Connect there. But here in the United States, studios still work with ISDN. So you have to kind of keep in mind the fact that it may not be around much longer, but it is around now. And if you can get work, using ISDN, typically the jobs pay better if you're doing an ISDN session. So, okay, let's look at, we've looked at technology. Will it be around? Well, maybe or maybe not, but we do know it is outdated technology, which means its demise, is coming. When exactly, we don't know. What is the cost? Well, it can be rather pricey to get into ISDN. There is there's actually a piece of hardware, a box, and by the way, this is not a tutorial on ISDN. I'm just trying to give you a bird's eye view. I've heard, of used units going for a couple $1,000s, new units going for several thousand, $3,000 to $5,000. Don't quote me on any of that. These are just, as I watch the marketplace, these are things that I observe. There is also, and this is the route that I've opted to go, a software solution. There's a company in the UK called AudioTX, and by the way, this is an unpaid advertisement. I make nothing off of this, but it's a software program that runs on PC. Sorry, not for Mac, but for PC, and it allows you to do an ISDN connection through your computer without using a box, a hardware ISDN box, and it's much less expensive. When I bought mine several years ago, it was $1,000. Last I saw, I believe, is running for about $750 for the software, again, which is much less expensive than paying several $1,000s for a box. But AudioTX is at audiotx.com. So that's a possibility. You also have to factor in getting it installed, and that's several $100s just to get it set up, and then you have your ongoing costs. I use AT&T. It costs me $45 and some odd cents a month for my service charges. And then the line charges can be rather expensive, but in almost all cases, a client will be dialing into you. You won't be dialing into them, so they'll be picking up the line charges. I'm also able to use mine as a phone patch, which is very handy, so it kind of kills two birds with one stone. So, again, should you be using ISDN? Well, it depends. It depends on really your marketing strategy and how how you treat your business, whether it really is a full-time business or whether it's more of a side business or a hobby. If it's more of a side business or a hobby, chances are less likely that you would want to use ISDN. When I started my voiceover business, I decided to do an all-out marketing blitz, and which meant not only in my own market here of Chicago, but literally around the country and around the world. So ISDN was a good choice for me. I certainly more than make my money with it. It's a very good investment for me. It allows me and would allow you to be represented by agencies outside of your market. I have agents Los Angeles, New York, Columbus, Kansas City, 14 in all now around the world, many of which who would never use me if I did not have ISDN. The session that I just wrapped up a few minutes ago was through an agency in Kansas City with a studio in Kansas City. And I was informed at the end of that session that they were happy with my work, and they've got more spots coming up that they want me to do. So it ends up being a very handsome return on an investment for me, but it's because I have agents in different markets, so that helps. Also, it can help in working with outside studios for audition purposes. There's a production company in New York that uses me from time to time for commercials, and they also audition me via ISDN. So I recently did an audition for a television network. They were looking for a promo voice, and so this production company simply dials me up, and I sit down. We take 10, 15 minutes. I do an audition for them, and we're done. I don't have to record it. I don't have to send it out as an MP3 or anything like that. Another way that ISDN works is in working with out-of-market studios. For instance, I have a client in Nashville. It's a production house that uses me on a regular basis because I have ISDN. So when they have a project, they simply dial me up into my studio, and we're good to go. If I did not have ISDN, they most likely would not be interested in working with me. So it's a question of return on investment, and that investment really depends on how heavily you're marketing yourself and really where you're at within your career development. And if you're early, I would say this: if you're early on and you really haven't hit your stride and your peak and you're still kind of learning, probably wouldn't do ISDN. But other than that, it's something to at least consider. Let me also give you this advice. If you decide that ISDN is for you, I would highly recommend, and I say this from experience, of finding a consultant who will work with you to help you contact the right people to make sure it gets set up properly and that you have all the right equipment on your end to make it all work. I did use a consultant, but only after a lot of time and expense trying to make it work on my own. And I mean, it took me forever to find the AT&T guy that sets this up, because I swear the guy works in some basement in some obscure building someplace and only gets called on like 2 or 3 times a year because ISDN typically is very much an outdated technology. So not a lot of call for his services. So, and if you want more information on that, contact me. I'd be glad to point you in the right direction for that. So again, just some things to think about in terms of ISDN. If you're thinking about going that direction, hopefully this will give you more food for thought. And I do wish you great success in your voiceover business. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions or maybe ideas for future videos, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at voiceoverexpert@gmail.com, voiceoverexpert@gmail.com. Thanks for checking in. I wish you all the best and look forward to talking to you again soon.